In the town of Maplewood, where the sun-drenched streets and friendly faces painted a picturesque image of small-town America, however, the tranquility of this community would soon be shattered by a shocking crime that would leave an indelible mark on its residents. This is the story of Coach Julian Thorne, a beloved figure in the town, whose secret life would lead to a tragic murder that rocked Maplewood to its core. Julian Thorne was not just any coach. He was the heart and soul of Maplewood High School's athletic program. However, beneath his affable exterior lay a hidden world, one filled with secrets and forbidden desires. Among those who looked up to Coach Thorne were two promising students, Alex Rivers and Daniel Hayes. Alex was a bright, ambitious young man with dreams of playing college basketball. He admired Coach Thorne not only for his coaching skills but also for his ability to connect with students on a personal level. Daniel, on the other hand, was more reserved but equally talented. He found solace in sports as an escape from the pressures of academic life. Both boys shared a bond with their coach that transcended the typical student-teacher relationship, but as they would soon discover, that bond would take a dark turn. The events leading up to the murder began innocently enough, with late-night practices, team bonding sessions, and shared aspirations. However, as time went on, whispers of an inappropriate relationship began to circulate among students. The lines between mentorship and something more blurred as Coach Thorne became increasingly involved in Alex and Daniel's lives. What started as admiration morphed into something more complicated, a secret affair that would ultimately lead to devastating consequences. On a warm summer evening in June 2023, the idyllic facade of Maplewood began to crack. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the park where Daniel Hayes was last seen alive. Friends had gathered for an evening of laughter and camaraderie, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. As night fell, Daniel disappeared without a trace. The following morning, panic set in when Daniel's friends reported him missing. The community rallied together, organizing search parties and plastering flyers with his face across town. As hours turned into days without any sign of him, hope began to fade. It wasn't until a local jogger stumbled upon a gruesome scene in the woods, a lifeless body hidden beneath fallen leaves, that the reality of their worst fears set in. The discovery sent shockwaves through Maplewood. The victim was confirmed to be Daniel Hayes, a vibrant young man with his whole life ahead of him, now reduced to a statistic in a chilling crime story. As investigators arrived at the scene, they quickly realized that this was not just another missing person case. It was a murder investigation that would unearth secrets buried deep within the community. Detective Maria Solis, known for her tenacity and keen investigative instincts, took charge of the case. With years of experience under her belt, she understood that unraveling this mystery would require more than just forensic evidence. It would necessitate delving into the lives of those closest to Daniel, friends who had shared laughter and dreams with him, and a coach who had been both mentor and confidant. As Detective Solis began her investigation, she quickly learned that Daniel's death was intertwined with Coach Thorne's past, a past filled with hidden relationships and unspoken desires. The whispers about Thorne's inappropriate conduct with students grew louder as she pieced together testimonies from classmates who had witnessed strange interactions between him and both Alex and Daniel. The emotional toll on those involved was palpable. Friends mourned the loss of Daniel while grappling with their own feelings of betrayal regarding their beloved coach. Parents struggled to comprehend how someone they trusted could harbor such dark secrets. And at the center of it all stood Coach Julian Thorne, once revered as a hero, now facing scrutiny as suspicions mounted against him. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that this case was more than just about solving a murder. It was about understanding how love could twist into obsession and betrayal could lead to tragedy. The relationships between coach and students blurred ethical lines that should never have been crossed. In this documentary series, we will explore not only the events surrounding Daniel Hayes' murder but also the emotional complexity of those involved. Their hopes, fears, dreams shattered by betrayal, and how one man's secret love affair spiraled into chaos that forever altered lives in Maplewood. The summer sun rose over Maplewood, but the warmth did little to alleviate the chilling reality that had gripped the town. The discovery of Daniel Hayes' body would forever alter the fabric of this close-knit community, transforming it from a haven of safety into a place shadowed by fear and suspicion. The initial autopsy report would later reveal that Daniel had suffered blunt force trauma to the head, a brutal act that spoke volumes about the violence he had endured in his final moments. But at this point in time, all Detective Solis could do was gather evidence and begin piecing together a timeline leading up to Daniel's death. As news spread throughout Maplewood about the discovery of Daniel's body, shockwaves rippled through the community. Friends who had spent countless hours laughing and sharing dreams were now grappling with grief and confusion. How could this happen in their town? Who would want to harm someone so full of potential? In an effort to provide closure for those left behind and find justice for Daniel, Detective Solis delved deeper into his life, interviewing friends who had seen him last and examining his relationships with fellow students and teachers alike. Among those relationships was Coach Julian Thorne, a man whose connection to both Daniel and Alex Rivers would soon come under intense scrutiny. As investigators began piecing together Daniel's final hours leading up to his disappearance, they learned about his growing friendship with Coach Thorne, a bond that had raised eyebrows among some students but remained largely unexamined until now. The coach's presence loomed large in their lives. He had been both mentor and confidant to many young athletes at Maplewood High School. The crime scene investigation revealed more than just physical evidence. It unveiled a tapestry of relationships woven together by trust and betrayal. As Detective Solis continued her inquiry into Daniel's life and those around him, it became increasingly clear that unraveling this mystery would require not only forensic expertise but also an understanding of human emotions, the complexities that often drive individuals to commit acts beyond comprehension. Maplewood stood on edge, waiting for answers while grappling with an unsettling truth. Darkness can exist even in places where light seems to shine brightest. As Detective Solis embarked on her quest for justice for Daniel Hayes, it was evident that this investigation would uncover secrets that many wished remained buried deep within their hearts, and perhaps even lead them down paths they never anticipated exploring. The sun dipped below the horizon on that fateful June evening, casting long shadows over Maplewood as the community grappled with the shocking news of Daniel Hayes' murder. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty, and the echoes of laughter that once filled the town were replaced by whispers of disbelief. Detective Solis began her investigation by interviewing witnesses who had last seen Daniel alive. She spoke with his friends, who recounted their last moments together at the park, the laughter, shared dreams, and plans for summer adventures. However, as they spoke, a sense of unease crept in. They mentioned Coach Julian Thorne more than once. Daniel really looked up to him, one friend, Mia Carter, said hesitantly. But lately, I noticed he was spending a lot of time with Coach, more than just practice. Detective Solis noted this with interest. The relationship between students and their coaches often held a unique dynamic, but it could also blur ethical lines. She needed to understand more about Coach Thorne's interactions with Daniel and his other students. Meanwhile, as forensic teams combed through the crime scene for evidence, Detective Solis began compiling a timeline of Daniel's final hours. She reached out to Coach Thorne for an interview, aware that his insights could provide crucial information about Daniel's state of mind leading up to his death. When they met in Coach Thorne's office at Maplewood High School, he appeared visibly shaken. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by a somber expression that hinted at a man grappling with guilt or fear. "I can't believe this happened," Thorne said, his voice cracking slightly. "Daniel was such a bright kid. He had so much potential." Detective Solis observed him closely as he spoke, searching for any signs of deception or emotional distance. "Can you tell me about your relationship with Daniel?" she asked gently. Thorne paused before responding. "I was just trying to help him excel in basketball. He wanted to play at a collegiate level. He was passionate about it." His words were earnest but lacked depth. There was something unspoken lurking beneath his surface, a tension that Detective Solis couldn't quite pinpoint. As their conversation progressed, she pressed further about Daniel's recent behavior and any changes he might have exhibited. Thorne mentioned that Daniel had been more withdrawn lately but attributed it to typical teenage angst. "Did he mention any conflicts or issues with anyone?" she probed. "No," Thorne replied quickly. almost too quickly. He was focused on his training. Detective Solis left the meeting feeling unsettled. While Thorne maintained an air of concern about Daniel's death, there was an underlying current that made her question his narrative. She decided to dig deeper into his background, both personal and professional. In parallel with her interviews, forensic teams worked tirelessly to analyze evidence collected from the crime scene. They uncovered several key pieces: strands of hair caught on branches near where Daniel's body was found and traces of DNA on items belonging to him that were discovered nearby. As days turned into weeks without concrete leads pointing toward a suspect, tension mounted within Maplewood. The community demanded answers. Parents feared for their children's safety while students whispered rumors about Coach Thorne's involvement in Daniel's life, and possibly his death. Detective Solis knew she needed to act quickly before fear turned into chaos within the community. With each passing day, she felt an increasing urgency to connect the dots between Daniel's relationships and uncover any hidden truths surrounding his murder. In her quest for justice for Daniel Hayes, a young life extinguished too soon, Detective Solis understood that sometimes those closest to us hold secrets we may never want to confront. As she prepared for her next round of interviews with students and faculty alike, she steeled herself for what lay ahead: an investigation that would force her to navigate treacherous waters filled with betrayal, love gone awry, and ultimately uncovering the truth behind a tragedy that would forever haunt Maplewood. As the investigation into Daniel Hayes' murder deepened, the intricate web of relationships within Maplewood High School began to unravel. Detective Maria Solis, determined to uncover the truth, focused her attention on Coach Julian Thorne and his connections with both Daniel and Alex Rivers. What had initially appeared as a mentor-mentee relationship now hinted at something far more complicated and potentially dangerous. Detective Solis arranged to meet with Alex Rivers, who had been one of Daniel's closest friends and a key figure in their social circle. The meeting took place in a small conference room at the police station, where the atmosphere was thick with tension. Alex entered, his expression a mixture of anxiety and grief. He had lost his friend, and now he felt the weight of suspicion hanging over him and those who had been close to Daniel. "Thank you for coming in, Alex," Detective Solis began gently. "I know this is difficult, but I need your help to understand what happened in the days leading up to Daniel's death." Alex nodded, visibly shaken. "I just can't believe he's gone. We were supposed to hang out that night. He never would have just disappeared like that." Detective Solis leaned forward, her tone encouraging yet probing. "I understand. But I need to ask, what was your relationship like with Coach Thorne? Did he ever act inappropriately toward you or Daniel?" Alex hesitated, glancing down at his hands. "At first, he was just a great coach. He really cared about us. But then things got weird. I noticed he was getting too close to Daniel." "Too close how?" Solis pressed. "He would text him late at night or call him after practice," Alex explained, his voice trembling slightly. "It felt like more than just coaching. I didn't want to believe it at first, but I started hearing rumors from other guys on the team." Detective Solis felt a knot tighten in her stomach as she listened to Alex's account. The idea of an inappropriate relationship between Coach Thorne and his students was troubling but not entirely unexpected given the circumstances surrounding Daniel's death. "Did you ever confront Daniel about it?" she asked. "I tried," Alex replied, frustration evident in his voice. "But he brushed it off. He said Coach was just looking out for him because he wanted to help him get a scholarship." Solis noted this information carefully. It painted a picture of manipulation disguised as mentorship, a dangerous dynamic that could have escalated into something far more sinister. As their conversation continued, Alex revealed that he had seen Daniel and Coach Thorne together more frequently in private settings, late-night practices and one-on-one meetings that raised red flags among other students. The more Alex spoke, the clearer it became that there were layers of secrecy surrounding their interactions. "Did you ever see them together when things felt off?" Detective Solis asked. Alex's face flushed with emotion as he recalled a particular incident. "There was one time after practice when I saw them arguing in the parking lot. I didn't hear what they were saying, but Daniel looked really upset. It felt like something was going on that we didn't know about. Detective Solis felt a surge of urgency. This could be the breakthrough she needed to connect the dots between Coach Thorne and Daniel's tragic fate. As she wrapped up her interview with Alex, she encouraged him to reach out if he remembered anything else. Every detail mattered. Afterward, Detective Solis returned to her office and reviewed her notes from both interviews with Alex and Coach Thorne. The inconsistencies in their stories were glaring. While Thorne portrayed himself as a concerned mentor, Alex painted a picture of an increasingly inappropriate relationship. Determined to gather more evidence, Detective Solis decided it was time to speak with other students who had been close to both Daniel and Coach Thorne. She sought out Mia Carter and several members of the basketball team who might provide additional insight into the dynamics at play. As she prepared for these interviews, Detective Solis knew she was venturing into sensitive territory, a place where trust had been broken and lives forever altered by hidden truths. Each conversation would peel back another layer of deception surrounding Daniel's murder and reveal the emotional complexities that had led to this tragic end. With every piece of information gathered, Detective Solis felt closer to uncovering the full story, one that involved not only betrayal but also love twisted into something dark and dangerous. The investigation was no longer just about solving a murder. It was about understanding how relationships could spiral out of control and lead individuals down paths they never intended to travel. As the investigation into Daniel Hayes' murder progressed, it became increasingly clear that forensic evidence would play a pivotal role in unraveling the mystery surrounding his tragic death. Detective Maria Solis understood that while witness testimonies provided valuable insights, it was the scientific analysis that could solidify the case against Coach Julian Thorne. In the days following Daniel's body being discovered, forensic teams meticulously combed through the crime scene in the woods. They collected samples of hair, fibers, and other physical evidence that could potentially link Thorne to the murder. Each piece of evidence was carefully catalogued and sent to the state crime lab for analysis. The breakthrough came 2 weeks later when forensic analyst Dr. Nathaniel Cross contacted Detective Solis with crucial findings. "We've identified DNA on a piece of clothing found near the crime scene," he reported, his voice steady but urgent. "It matches Coach Thorne's profile." Detective Solis felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the evidence she had been waiting for. The DNA sample had been found on Daniel's shirt, indicating a struggle had occurred before his death. This revelation not only placed Thorne at the scene, but also suggested a violent confrontation between him and Daniel. "Can you confirm how recent this DNA is?" Solis pressed, eager for more details. Dr. Cross explained that the analysis indicated the DNA was fresh, likely deposited during the time of the murder. "This is significant," he added. "It suggests that there was physical contact between Thorne and Daniel shortly before his death." With this information in hand, Detective Solis knew it was time to confront Coach Thorne again. She arranged for a second interview, armed with the new evidence that could potentially seal his fate. As she entered the interrogation room, she felt a mix of determination and trepidation. "Coach Thorne," she began, her tone firm yet measured, "we've received new forensic evidence linking you to Daniel's murder." Thorne's expression shifted from surprise to defensiveness. "I didn't do anything wrong. I cared about Daniel. He was like a son to me." Solis pressed on, presenting him with the DNA findings and questioning him about his whereabouts on the night of Daniel's disappearance. Thorne's responses became increasingly erratic as he struggled to maintain his innocence against mounting evidence. In addition to the DNA match, forensic experts had also analyzed text messages exchanged between Thorne and Daniel in the days leading up to the murder. Some messages hinted at escalating tensions and emotional conflicts, suggesting that their relationship had taken a darker turn than previously acknowledged. As Detective Solis compiled all this information into her case file, she felt a sense of clarity emerging from the chaos. The combination of forensic evidence and witness testimonies painted a damning picture of Coach Thorne, a man who had exploited his position of authority and allowed his obsession to spiral into violence. With each passing day, it became clearer that justice for Daniel Hayes was within reach. The forensic findings were not just cold data, they were pieces of a larger narrative, a narrative that would ultimately reveal how love could twist into something horrific and how trust could be shattered in an instant. As she prepared for what lay ahead, a potential arrest and trial, Detective Solis remained resolute in her mission, to ensure that Daniel's story would not be forgotten and that those responsible for his death would face accountability for their actions. The truth was emerging from the shadows, and with it came hope for healing in a community torn apart by tragedy. With the forensic evidence firmly linking Coach Julian Thorne to the murder of Daniel Hayes, Detective Maria Solis prepared for the next critical step in her investigation: the arrest. On July 12, 2023, the tension in Maplewood reached a boiling point as news spread that the beloved coach was being taken into custody. The community watched in disbelief, grappling with the reality that someone they had trusted could be implicated in such a heinous act. As Thorne was led away in handcuffs, emotions ran high. Daniel's friends and family felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. While justice seemed to be within reach, it came at an immeasurable cost. The man who had once inspired countless students was now facing charges of first-degree murder. The trial began in late August 2023, drawing attention from across the state. The courtroom was packed with supporters of both Daniel's family and Coach Thorne. Detective Solis knew that this trial would serve as a reflection of the community's values and the trust that had been shattered. The prosecution presented a compelling case, highlighting the forensic evidence that placed Thorne at the crime scene. They called witnesses, including Alex Rivers and Mia Carter, who testified about Thorne's inappropriate behavior and his increasingly obsessive relationship with Daniel. Each revelation added weight to the prosecution's argument that Thorne had manipulated his position of authority. In contrast, Thorne's defense team attempted to portray him as a victim of circumstance, an innocent man wrongfully accused due to misunderstandings and hearsay. They sought to discredit witness testimonies and argued that there was no concrete evidence proving intent to kill. As the trial unfolded, Detective Solis remained vigilant, knowing that every detail mattered. The emotional toll on Daniel's family was palpable. They sat in silence, hoping for justice while grappling with their grief. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury reached their verdict on September 15, 2023. Coach Julian Thorne was found guilty of first-degree murder. Gasps filled the courtroom as Daniel's family embraced one another, tears streaming down their faces, a bittersweet moment of closure after months of heartache. As Thorne was led away to face his sentence, Detective Solis felt a mix of relief and sadness. Justice had been served, but it came at a profound cost. A young life lost and trust irrevocably broken within a community that would take time to heal from this tragedy. The echoes of Daniel Hayes' story would linger long after the gavel fell, serving as a haunting reminder of how love can turn into obsession and trust can dissolve into betrayal. Justice had been served, yet it could never bring back their beloved son. Friends who had rallied together in grief now embraced one another, united in their shared sorrow and the hope that this verdict would help heal their fractured community. As Thorne was led away in handcuffs, Detective Maria Solis felt a mixture of emotions. She had fought tirelessly for justice on behalf of Daniel and his family, yet the victory felt hollow against the backdrop of such loss. The trial had revealed deep-seated issues of trust and betrayal that would linger long after Thorne's sentencing.